It starts in silence, the kind of silence that can only exist inside Ferrari's garage, where decades of engineering tradition hum beneath the surface. But this season, that silence has been disturbed, not by a scandal, but by something far more subtle: hydraulics. When Lewis Hamilton arrived at Maranello in 22 and 25, he didn't just bring experience, star power, or 7 world titles. He brought a different philosophy, one that quietly challenges the very feel of a Ferrari at its core. For years, Ferrari's steering had a distinctive character: smooth, progressive, cushioned, designed for predictability and tradition. Hamilton? He demands something else entirely. His feedback began reshaping the SF25 before it even left the simulator bay. He wasn't asking for tweaks. He wanted a fundamental rewrite of the hydraulic steering response: immediate torque translation, no dead zone, fingertip precision. For Ferrari, it's not just a mechanical adjustment, it's an ideological pivot. In a team where Charles Leclerc's preferences have quietly shaped the car for seasons, Hamilton's insistence on steering feel has ignited a conflict no one at Ferrari can dismiss as a set-up discussion. And as Spa approaches, that conflict isn't just simmering in the data rooms and simulator sessions, it's about to play out on track in full view. The stakes? Not just lap times, but the very future of who defines a Ferrari from the cockpit outwards. Underneath the SF25's scarlet bodywork lies a hidden war, a battle fought in torque traces, actuator response times, and steering curve overlays. Ferrari's engineers have always prided themselves on progressive dampers and a steering architecture that rewards a smooth, deliberate input style. But Hamilton's demands cut against that grain entirely. When he first stepped into Ferrari's simulator, he identified what most observers couldn't see: a delay, subtle but real, between steering input and front axle response. His analysis wasn't anecdotal, it was forensic. He requested a new hydraulic steering spec, one that delivered near instantaneous feedback. What's remarkable isn't just that Ferrari obliged, it's what they found when they ran the numbers. In back-to-back simulator tests at Spa-Francorchamps, Hamilton's hydraulic override allowed quicker corrections through Eau Rouge, tighter lines through Pouhon, and significantly reduced steering input variance at Blanchimont, corners where confidence is everything. The telemetry told a stark story: fewer correction spikes, a cleaner torque curve, and most crucially, improved delta times in Sector 2, the section that often defines qualifying margins at Spa. Yet this wasn't just an individual preference. When overlaid against Leclerc's baseline setup, engineers found something uncomfortable. Hamilton's spec wasn't just different, it was objectively faster. The result? Ferrari's garage is now quietly running 2 distinct steering architectures, one for Hamilton, one for Leclerc. An extraordinary concession for a team that has long prized unified philosophy over driver-specific tailoring. And as the engineers pore over sector data ahead of FP1, one question looms. Is this simply about making Hamilton comfortable, or is it about redefining what a Ferrari should feel like at the limit? But this battle isn't confined to telemetry screens and engineering diagrams. It's also playing out between 2 drivers whose careers could not be more different. Charles Leclerc, Ferrari's prodigy, has shaped the team's development path for years. His input has been the reference, his style, the benchmark, around which engineers tuned balance, aero maps, and yes, steering feel. Hamilton's arrival has disrupted that order completely. From their very first track walk at Spa this week, the tension was unmistakable. Cameras captured polite gestures, quiet conversations, but what they didn't see was the undercurrent. The way Leclerc watched Hamilton's hands as he described the feedback he needed, not just in words, but in gestures sharp enough to suggest a challenge. Inside the garage, the atmosphere is changing too. Engineers who once deferred automatically to Leclerc's feedback are now processing Hamilton's setup requests without delay or resistance. Subtle shifts. New hydraulic maps approved for real-world testing, simulator sessions doubled for validation, and suddenly the feedback loop Hamilton initiated is becoming operational reality. For Leclerc, the shift is both technical and psychological. His quiet professionalism masks a deep recalculation, longer simulator runs, silent adjustments, and a marked change in tone on team radio. No confrontation, just calculation. Because while this isn't teammate rivalry in the classic sense, no insults, no fireworks, it is something arguably more profound, an ideological split over who Ferrari should trust to define its future. And as Spa looms, that human drama is inseparable from the technical one. The question isn't just who's faster, it's who Ferrari will listen to when it matters most. For Ferrari, this steering dispute comes at a crucial moment in the championship fight. With Red Bull and McLaren setting the pace across the first half of the season, every decision now must be weighed, not just for comfort, but for points potential. The gap to the championship leaders is tight enough that a single innovation, or misstep, could define the rest of Ferrari's campaign. Hamilton's changes may seem niche from the outside. Torque traces, actuator response, hydraulic linearity. But in a field where qualifying margins at Spa can shrink below a tenth of a second, small gains translate directly into championship mathematics. If Hamilton's override delivers even 2/10 through Sector 2, that's enough to swing qualifying positions, alter race strategies, and potentially deliver podiums Ferrari might otherwise miss. Conversely, sticking to Leclerc's preferred setup, familiar, progressive, but arguably slower, risks leaving points on the table. Fred Vasseur now faces a delicate calculus. Does he back the car philosophy Ferrari has used for years, or embrace Hamilton's radical feedback as the team's new benchmark? This isn't just a technical decision, it's a championship one. Every point counts, and Ferrari's engineers know it. Spa won't merely be about track position. It's about who gives Ferrari the best chance of clawing back into the title fight. And by FP1, that question will have moved from theory to reality. The steering feel debate isn't new at Ferrari, but its context now is unprecedented. Historically, Ferrari's cars have reflected a philosophy deeply rooted in its Italian heritage. Smooth, progressive, respectful of driver input, but never dominated by it. From the days of Schumacher to Vettel, Ferrari's design ethos balanced mechanical grip with predictability, steering that inspired confidence but left room for the car's character. What Hamilton is demanding at Maranello cuts sharply across that tradition. His legacy at Mercedes was defined by machines that responded like extensions of his body, immediate, direct, surgical. And that legacy carried him to 7 world championships. Yet, at Ferrari, this ethos has never been fully embraced, until now. The fact that Ferrari's engineers are even entertaining 2 steering philosophies inside the same team signals a profound shift. No longer is this just a question of driver comfort, it's a referendum on the very DNA of Ferrari's approach to racing cars. The internal culture, historically slow to change, is showing signs of realignment driven by raw data rather than legacy thinking. And it's Hamilton's telemetry that has forced that conversation. When simulator overlays show his inputs deliver cleaner lines and fewer corrections at the most punishing corners on the calendar, the argument for maintaining tradition starts to crumble. Ferrari's engineers know this, and that's why Spa isn't just another race on the calendar this year. It's an inflection point for the most famous team in Formula One history. Whatever happens at Spa, Ferrari's engineers and management now face decisions that will ripple through the rest of the 2025 season and beyond. If Hamilton's hydraulic override proves superior in real-world conditions, delivering tangible lap time gains, the team will need to decide whether to pivot fully toward his steering philosophy, not just for the SF25, but potentially for next year's car as well. Such a shift would mark a radical break with the past and send a clear message across the paddock. Ferrari is willing to let a driver redefine the car's core characteristics if the data supports it. But that decision won't come without fallout. Leclerc's influence, once quietly dominant within the team, would inevitably diminish, setting up a subtle but consequential power shift inside the garage. In an environment where trust, feedback, and driver-engineer relationships are everything, such a shift could redefine roles and relationships for years to come. And competitors will be watching closely. If Hamilton's philosophy wins at Spa, it will validate his approach and signal to rivals that Ferrari's internal structure is evolving, moving away from tradition-bound thinking toward a more driver-responsive engineering model. For McLaren, Mercedes, and even Red Bull, it's a potential game-changer, not just for Ferrari's performance this year, but for how they will prepare to fight them next season. This saga is no longer about a steering actuator or a setup adjustment. It's about the fundamental question of who defines Ferrari's DNA going forward. If Hamilton's hydraulic override succeeds at Spa, it could spark a broader engineering revolution inside Maranello, a pivot toward data-driven responsiveness and driver-led feedback loops that could influence not only next year's SF26, but Ferrari's philosophy for an entire generation of cars. That evolution would also redefine the team's relationship with its drivers, elevating Hamilton's role from simply a championship contender to a de facto architect of Ferrari's technical future. And it would reshape the internal culture that has for so long prized continuity, stability, and heritage above all else. Conversely, if Leclerc's philosophy prevails, if his smooth, progressive setup proves quicker in real-world conditions. It will serve as a validation of Ferrari's traditional approach and reinforce his influence over car development for the foreseeable future. Either way, Spa is not just a race. It's the moment where Ferrari must confront the reality that two fundamentally different philosophies cannot coexist indefinitely under the same roof. The outcome will determine not only who Ferrari listens to in 2025, but who they build around, both literally and culturally, as they chase their next championship. The future of the red machine is on the line, and this time it's not just about who crosses the finish line first, it's about who defines what a Ferrari is supposed to be.